right, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today, those of you that could be here or those watching online. We are going to go ahead and start the March 28th Commission Special Meeting. It is now 6 o'clock according to our time, so the meeting's been called to order. I'm going to ask you if you will rise with me. We're going to say a brief prayer, and then Commissioner Salter is going to lead us in the pledge. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity to gather here tonight, God. I pray that you'll build a hedge of protection around all the families that are represented here tonight, God. We pray, Lord, that you will give us wisdom beyond our years as we make decisions that will be impactful, not only to members in our community now, God, but also to those that will come later, Lord. Jesus, well, again, we thank you for the opportunity to be here in America where we can have these sorts of meetings, and we ask that you will just help us all stay civil tonight, God, and be respectful of one another as we work through these items, Lord. We pray this to you in Jesus Christ's precious and holy name, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge to our nation flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, I know a lot of you may not have attended one of these meetings before, and for those of you who have, I'll just run through it one more time so we could try to be as respectful to everyone's time as possible and expeditious as well. If you will, just out of respect to the folks that will be coming up, try to make sure if you have any cell phones or other electronic devices, just please try to put those on vibrate or silent. If you need to excuse yourself, obviously, at any time. For the facilities, you can go out this door, hang a left, and then another left, and they're down the hallway. We'll ask you as you come up tonight, you'll see a timer up here. Clearly, we have well over 50 people in attendance, and so it's going to be very instrumental that as you come up, whether to speak in favor of a project or against it, other than the presenter that has to give us the information. If you will, just try to be to the point with whether your support or objection, and try not to repeat something if it's not necessary that maybe another speaker did, and we'll try to limit that to 3 minutes. And again, the goal on that and so that we can have an opportunity for everyone here that wishes to speak to be able to speak. So I appreciate you working with that tonight, and we're not going to have cheers or boos or whatever. We're going to focus on the items in front of us tonight. So with that, I'm going to go through the agenda. I'm going to ask if there's anyone here in opposition to each item. If there's no one in opposition to a certain item, I will defer to the district commissioner to make a motion on that item. That way we could dispose of those issues, and then we will come back to you if we skip over you. Item number 1 is 2019-V-011. The applicant is Herbst Homes LP. Location is 8461 Laredo Street in Navarre, Florida. This is a request for a variance to reduce the corner side setback from 15 feet to 7 feet for a single family residence. This was a zoning board decision, were approved without objection, but this was appealed by staff, I believe. Do we have anyone here in opposition to the appeal tonight on this? Hearing none, I'll defer this. I believe is in Commissioner Peach's district.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is actually an appeal of a zoning board decision. The appeal is by our planning and zoning department. They disagreed with the decision of the planning and zoning board. I've driven this area a lot. I was just working some traffic issues on this. This is what we consider a minor connector, but it's a major connector road. And this would be the only home that would get a setback reduced to 7 feet, and it's on the corner of Laredo and Esplanade. So the danger is too great. The future use in that area to have that right away for us, should we have to do something on Esplanade, is there. We have those setbacks for a reason. So I'm going to move that we grant the appeal, thereby denying the request for the variance.
Is that without objection?
Yes, without objection.
Hearing no objection, the appeal is granted. Thank you. Item number 2 2019-CU-005, project applicant New Hope Assembly of God. Location is 9550 Chumuckla Highway, Base, Florida. This is a request for a conditional use to allow a church in a ag rural residential zoning district. This is in District 3. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this tonight? Anyone here in opposition to the New Hope Assembly of God Church request tonight? All right, this is in Commissioner Salter's district. I'll defer to Commissioner Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move the conditional use without objection.
Commissioner Peach, any comment?
Oh,
Okay, no. All right.
Left my mark.
Hearing no objection, that item's approved. Item number 3 is 2019-R-011. Project applicant is Glennon Russell. Location is 6800 block of Joyce Drive, Milton, Florida. This is a request to go from rural residential single family to single family residential. This is in Commissioner Salter's district. This was approved without objection at the zoning board. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this tonight? All right, hearing none, I'll defer to Commissioner Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move approval without objection.
Hearing no objection, the item's approved. Item number 4 is 2019-R-012. The project applicant is Deanne Dyes. Represented by Holly Baker of Joe Baker Construction. Location is Jubilee Drive in Pace, Florida. This is a request to go from agriculture rural residential to single family residential on a .65 acre parcel. This was approved with a vote of 10-0 by the zoning board. Is there anyone here tonight to speak in opposition of this? Anyone here tonight to speak in opposition of the project at Jubilee Drive for the .65 acre rezoning? All right, hearing none, I would make a motion without objection to approve. Hearing none, the item's approved. Item number 5 is 2019-R-008. Project applicant is Patricia Johnson. Location is 7135 Oak Street, Baghdad, Florida. Existing zoning is historical single family. Proposed zoning is single family residential. This is in District 2, and this was approved by a vote of 10-0 at the zoning board. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this tonight? Okay, thank you, sir. We'll come back to you. Item number 6, 2019-R-013. Project applicant is BlackRock Capital Partners. Location address is Billary Road, Pace, Florida. Existing zoning is rural residential single family, and the proposed zoning is R1 single family residential. This is in Commission District 3, and it was denied with a vote of 8-2 by the zoning board. Is there anyone here in opposition of this tonight? Okay, thank you. We'll come back to it. Item number 7. 2019-R-014. Project applicant is Stephen Schindel. Location is 7580 East Bay Boulevard, Navarre, Florida. This is to go from neighborhood, our existing zone is neighborhood commercial and single family residential, and they're proposing zoning of highway commercial development. This is a Commissioner District 4. The zoning board recommendation was approved with a vote of 6-4. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this tonight? All right, I will defer to Commissioner Peach.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if the proponent's here. Is the proponent of this here?
Is the applicant, Mr. Schindel, here tonight? If you will, hold on just a moment. Do you want to hear this one now or come back to it?
We could come back to it.
All right, we'll come back to you, sir.
I'm prepared to act, but if he's here, he'll probably want to speak.
And again, we just try to move through these, so those of you that, if we can get you out of here as quickly as possible, we will. All right, let's see, that's the same case. And item number 8 is project 2019-R-015. Project applicant is the Ball Family Partnership. Location is Woodbine Road, Pace, Florida. Existing zoning is single-family residential. Proposed zoning is a planned unit development and highway commercial development. This is in District 1. Is there anyone here in opposition to this tonight? Okay, thank you. We'll come back to it. And item number 9, I apologize, I forgot to tell you at the beginning of the meeting, but if you were not made aware of, project 2019-R-016, the applicant was Brian Elstock. This was on Ward Basin Road. It was a request to go from single-family residential to a P2 or a park designation. This has been withdrawn by the applicant, so it will not be heard tonight. So if you were here on 2019-R-016, that was withdrawn, and it will not be heard tonight. We will go back now to item number 5, which is case 2019-R-008. The applicant, Patricia Johnson. Is Mrs. Johnson here tonight, or a representative from Mrs. Johnson? Okay, this is location 7135 Oak Street, Baghdad, Florida. Existing zoning, historical single family. Proposed zoning is R1 single family residential. This is in Commissioner Cole's district. I will defer to Commissioner Cole. I do know we had at least one gentleman here to speak tonight.
Okay, and the gentleman I've seen out there is in opposition to this, as am I, Mr. Chairman. Baghdad, we've gone to extensive lengths to keep Baghdad historical. We've got a historical review board there. At times, we've even had people where they couldn't paint houses or use particular material on a house because of the historical significance. Our staff has worked diligently for hours for funding for the Baghdad Millsite Park, a historical park that's basically right up the river from this location. And when I was first on this board, the citizens of Baghdad came to me, and we even built the community center to resemble the historical value that we see in Baghdad, and based it on the architecture of the time when Baghdad was a thriving mill town. So I am absolutely not in favor of approval of this. I don't know how it got past the zoning board 10-0, but I am going to stand in opposition to this approval.
Is that motion without objection?
Yes, sir.
All right, hearing no objection, that application is denied. All right, item number 6 is 2019-R-013. Project applicant is BlackRock Capital Partners, represented by Buddy Page of Professional Growth Management. Location is Billary Road, and this is a request to go from rural residential single family to a proposed zoning of R1 single family residential. I believe I see Mr. Page, saw him somewhere. Mr. Page, if you'd like to come up. And if I didn't mention earlier, anybody as you come up tonight, please, it will be so helpful to our clerk tonight if you will state your name and address before you begin talking, and that way she can get it on the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Buddy Page, 5337 Hamilton Lane in Pace, representing BlackRock Capital Partners this evening in this application. Mr. Chairman, this is the second time that this application has come before the board. Earlier, it was for a greater density and different types of locations as far as some of the ingress and egress goes. And following me, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, Ron Ward, who did more of the design and is with BlackRock, has a couple of comments as well. Mr. Chairman, in looking at the application that we turned in and the comments from your staff, we meet all of the criteria that is stated in here in terms of urban sprawl, engineering, public works, parks and recreation, suitability. And we're asking your consideration for the smaller number of lots. The new design, as far as ingress and egress, takes everything that would have gone out on Billary and transfers it down to Whitley on the south end. There was an engineering comment. I'm not quite sure what to make of this, but it says engineering does not agree with moving a perceived traffic problem from one location to another. I don't know how a 39-unit subdivision, regardless of where it empties out onto a county road, can be classified, as engineering says here, as a perceived traffic problem. Up where I live, there are about 122 homes that empty out onto Adams Road off of my particular street, which empties out then onto either West Spencer or out onto Shamuckla. But for some reason, the engineering department views 39 single-family lots emptying out onto a county road as a perceived traffic problem. The road certainly has the capacity in terms of the county's congestion management manual to handle that, so we're kind of mystified what engineering has in their mind about, and I don't see anyone here from engineering tonight, but we'd like to get to that. Typically, those types of concerns for engineering, egress, drainage, and so forth are handled once the detailed set of construction plans for the subdivision are turned in. But we have an early comment here for whatever reason. But Mr. Chairman, we think that the relocation of the entranceway down onto the southerly end that would take all of the traffic then, not have any of it come out on to Billary, solved a lot of what we thought were complaints early on from the citizens. Unfortunately, if you followed the video of this particular item before the planning board, we had one person that was allowed to speak, and after she spoke, or he spoke, the planning board summarily voted right there on the spot. No other people were allowed to speak either for or against, and the resulting vote, as you can see, was 10-0 against. But we had some folks that were there to speak that were not given that opportunity, Mr. Chairman. So at this point, we think that everything the county requires in the application, all 5 of the items, we have met the criteria that the county proposes in your application package. And Mr. Chairman, if we could have Mr. Ron Ward, he has just a couple of detailed items to address the board with.
All right, thank you, Mr. Page. Mr. Ward?
Thank you for letting me address the board here. I've got a few comments more than what Buddy had stated there. Originally, we had proposed a project of 74 lots on this piece of property. We couldn't do that even if we wanted to now because of the soils conditions and some other issues. In addition to that, we were going to come out on Billary, and there was a large group of people objecting to that. We listened to them. We went back and we bought another lot located on Whitley and used that as an entrance and exit for everything, utilities, cars, everything, so that we don't come out on Billary at all. There's no construction going to take place on Billary. There's no activity on Billary, nothing. One of the comments was mentioned too was the traffic issues on Billary and Whitley. Actually, Whitley's a little bit larger width-wise than Billary anyhow, so we are coming out there. The only thing we don't meet as far as the zoning requirements go is they're not half-acre lots. They're pretty close, but they're not a half-acre. We, as developers, follow all the rules and regulations stipulated and set by the county, so as Buddy said, we have met all of the requirements for the rezoning. I'd ask that you look at these favorably. And, you know, one of the things that was mentioned in our last review here where we got turned down was that it didn't meet, you know, the requirements. And the Saturday thereafter, your county attorney put in the newspaper, and I'll quote this, "If it meets the land development code, the board has no legal basis to deny." We meet all of the legal code and all the requirements. I ask that you do approve this for us. We have
Except that you don't have half-acre lots.
Correct. But we meet the land development code.
If you were building under the existing zoning, you would not meet the half-acre lot requirements, correct?
Well, according to the comments we got back from Where we get that, buddy, from the
You're
code?
consistent with the comprehensive plan, but half-acre lots are required in the existing zoning. You're
Correct.
asking for a rezoning
Correct.
so that you don't have to have half-acre lots.
If-
So you do not meet the requirements of the land development code on the land
we-
as it exists now,
But we do meet them for the rezoning request.
if the board granted that request.
Correct.
And Mr. Chairman, just
we-
for staff clarification, staff has not reviewed this conceptual site plan. As you recall, we cannot place conditions upon a rezoning. And so engineering, planning and zoning staff, we're looking at this property as a worst-case scenario under the R1 zoning district, which is 80 units per acre. So that's what we reviewed it as.
80 units total, 4 units. Thank you. All right, Mr. Ward, you can continue.
Okay, we couldn't put that many on there anyhow. We have, our conceptual drawing shows over a little over 20 acres. We've got 4.5 acres of holding pond on there, so the soil conditions won't even allow the high density that's in there, nor will the market conditions either. We have two options here that we're trying to do. One is we're trying to meet the objections that was listed in the previous request that we had, which was to stay off of Billary. And we bought the lot on Whitley to do that. If we don't get the approval, we're going to have to go back and review this and come up with half-acre lots, and they will all come out on Billary. So all of our activity is going to be shifted and come out on Billary unless we can get this type of approval where we can come out on Whitley and do what we propose to do. So I want to come out on Whitley. I don't want to stay on Billary, but if we don't have any other option, if we go back to half-acre lots, then we'll come out on Billary.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else here that would like to speak in favor of this application tonight? Yes, sir. If you need to come up here. I apologize. No, I can't take it from the audience. You can either come up here or we'll... All right. I don't know if, Dan, if we can do anything. I know the acoustics aren't perfect. I'll try to speak louder, and we'll just ask folks to speak a little louder. This was a building that was not constructed to be a chambers of a board of county commission, but it was renovated, so we're going to go with the best we have. I would encourage you, I always say sometimes I get up here and feel like a preacher. I would encourage you, if you can't hear, please move forward to the front. My pastor said he loves to see the front row filled up. And so I'd encourage you, if you can't hear me, just move forward and we'll do the best we can. Do we have anyone else here to speak in favor of this project tonight? All right, do we have anyone in opposition that would like to come forward and speak tonight? All right, if you will, just come forward and y'all could line up there, or at least 2 or 3, and then you don't have to have a big line, and that way you can work the order out amongst yourselves. Again, just state your name and address for the record as you come forward. And again, to be respectful of everybody's time, we're going to have a 3-minute limit. So, yes, ma'am.
My name is Allison Seoane. You want my address? 4245 North Cambridge. Court Pace.
Ma'am, please speak straight into the microphone so help these folks out. We got the volume up, but if you don't...
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
The reason that I'm in opposition is because, as a gentleman implied, there's only 39 units, right? Well, there's 39 units on top of all other construction that is being built. And when he was here last, I asked, I would like to see the date of all the studies that are presented. I am finding that a lot of these applications quote studies from back in 2008. And I find that unacceptable. The last comment I have is that he said people were not given the opportunity to speak for the project. I was here, nobody asked to speak. So I don't think there was anybody, if they were, they did not ask to speak. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Just name and address for the record.
My name is Rufus Phillips. I live at 6337 Billary Road. He talks about 39 units, and if you look at the back of the booklet, I give you the last page. There's this little concept of a subdivision. If you notice, there's a red mark right there on the left-hand corner. That's 1,280 feet. The width of this lot is 520. Now, with a little adjustment, you could actually put a road over here on the west side, and another road down the middle, that will allow you to have 54 lots by going, let me get my math here, guys. 1280 divided by 70 is 18. 520 minus the 40 for a roadway leaves you 480. Divided by 3 is 160. So you could have 18, 3 rows, which makes 54 lots at 70 by 160. I've done that with no sweat. These guys are professionals. They know how to move stuff around. If you'll go to the first picture I submitted, that's our little roadway right there. The entrance he talks about on Whitley is 150 feet, basically from these 2 stop signs. This is Billary, Quintet, and Whitley. The traffic count, we always talk about the red light. The traffic count should be where it counts, and that's where we live. So looking at the 3rd page in this little booklet that I presented to y'all, right now we're producing 191 current vehicles. And since this is for maximum of R1A, right? Am I wrong here?
R1, I believe there was a typo in the application, but
How many lots are allowed?
that would be 4 lots per acre.
Okay, so that's 80. If you could break it down to 20. Use maximum road count. His is a 382. That puts his count and our count at 574. We tripled our road count. That doesn't include buses, mailmen, the future construction vehicles. Engineering talks about how bad the road is right here. You know this little kickback? If you're coming in here, you're definitely going to go down Billary. So all traffic, no matter what he says, is going to end up on Billary because you can't make this hard right turn especially if there's a bus there. So they're going to shoot right down this road regardless. And why all of a sudden does he have to sell a piece of property because he can't make half-acre lots? I guess that's his problem. I hope I haven't bored you with the facts. And I would make a statement, but I think I'll walk off because his group wasn't real professional to my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Cole?
Mr. Chairman, through the chair to Sean. Sean, going to this, there's no way to lock, legally for this board to lock in the 39 homes, is there?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, if I might, Commissioner Salter, this is your district, and it seems like everybody else is in opposition. Would you share with us your feelings on it before we run all these people through the gamut, or do you want to hear from everybody in opposition?
I'd like to hear from you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. Yes, sir. Name and address for the record.
My name is Joe Eline. I live at 6307 Billary Road. I am right across from the Billary Road easement. When I talked to Mr. Ward a few days ago. We went over his site plan, and what I see is an effort from them to appease the residents of Billary Road, and I appreciate that. I do. My question is in the new packet that was submitted. Staff mentioned that the proposed development will be required to provide connections to both roadways, Billary and Whitley, as well as the parcel to the east to meet interconnectivity requirements to the LDC. Can we clarify that? Is that a requirement or a suggestion to have two ingress and egress points?
Yes, sir. So right now, currently, there is an easement there. So when reviewing this application as a site plan application, we always encourage interconnectivity for school buses, mailmen, things of that nature. So because this parcel is less than 50 acres, as defined by the Land Development Code, he could do away with the Billary Road ingress and egress, but he would still have to have at least a point of ingress and egress to the parcel to the east because it's currently vacant and it's about 40 acres there. So he could remove that ingress and egress there as discussed with staff today.
So that comprehensive plan, the Land Development Code you were speaking about earlier, that's really my concern and my question. The Land Development Code, it was put in place for a reason. Again, I don't have that much of a problem with the 39 homes as opposed to the 40. If we walked away right now and they said, you know what, forget about it, they could potentially put 40 homes in this property. So we're already below that. It's not as big a deal for them to use 39, and now it sounds like they might even have to get rid of a few more lots to create another easement back to the east. So their lot count is going down. I'm definitely in favor of that. Our biggest thing is the traffic on our street. The corner, Commissioner Salter, I know you've gone through that corner. It's you know, to be frank, it's going to suck any way you shape it. I mean, whether it's 39 homes, whether it's 80 homes, I mean, even 20 homes, it's going to be terrible. That corner is just not up to snuff for that kind of movement.
Sir, if you would just try to bring us into a landing.
It was once suggested to redo that corner. Do we have any commitment from the developer to try to improve the corner, to improve the traffic problem?
Sir, not that's in the application, and we can't force them to on that. Again, out of respect, I appreciate your comments. We're going to move on. We've got several other people, and we've exceeded the 3 minutes, but thank you.
All right, thank you.
I will ask, before the next gentleman, I see you want to speak, do we have anyone else that has not already spoke on this issue that wants to speak before we have somebody come back up for the second time? Anybody else that wants to speak on this item that has not yet spoken? All right, sir, you can come back up one more time if you'd like. Just try to.
My name is Rufus Phillips. I live at 6337 Billery. You made the comment that he could do away with the Billery entrance for the, did I quite hear that just a minute ago?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
If that's done, that has to be voted on by these these gentlemen right here, right?
No, sir.
I thought I heard that the other day, the commissioners had to vote on that.
No, sir, not on, according to the Land Development Code, if he has the access off of Whitley, he is not required to have the access off of Billery. He could basically turn around and just sell those to the neighbors and just create a separate parcel or something for that. But as far as the access to the east, he would have to have, and then the Land Development Code talks about 50 lots or greater. So if he came in with something other than 50 lots, he either has to have 2 access points or he has to have a boulevard entrance.
Okay. So he could actually, though, deed it to the county, showing good faith, right? Where nobody could use that lot.
That's certainly the option of the developer.
Okay. Fixing to get out of here. Currently, there's 6 acres on Billery that could, if his zoning is passed, if what he's asking for is passed, there's 6 acres on Billery, that could turn into 24. Mr. Rutherford has 40, that's another 140-something homes. Mr. Whitley has about 157, so that's about 670. So right now, we could have a potential of 870 homes in that area with a stroke of a pen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll allow, if Mr. Page or Mr. Ward want to come back up, we'll allow one more 3-minute stint there if you have any comments, and then we'll defer to Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, Buddy Page again. If the developer wanted to stay on Billery, he would not have paid $20,000 for the access on the southerly end to get out onto Whitley. It was 20, Ron, is that right? 20 even? $20,000 they paid for that. So that shows some type of commitment on the part of the developer in trying to appease the concern for all of the traffic emptying out on Billery. Mr. Chairman, that was the point I wanted to add.
Thank you. One question before I divert to Commissioner Salter. Would the developer have a problem with submitting this plan under a plan unit development the way that the conceptual?
Mr. Chairman, we discussed that with Mr. Ward. Plan unit developments are loaded at the front end with cost for the developer. There's still no guarantee that it will get passed. You have a project coming up here in just a few minutes. I would venture to guess that that developer, who's behind me over here, has spent probably $250,000 on a PUD, and he still doesn't know if he's going to get it. So there's no particular advantage for a developer, in my view, to do a PUD or to approach it like we've done it here. There's no guarantee for either one, yet you have spent a ton of money on a PUD at the front end. I would suggest that if the board is looking for a way to lock in a potential number of lots on something, go to your land development code and create some additional R categories under each one of the land use specifications, rather than R1, R2, and then jumping to something else. Have a half a dozen Rs, and when he comes in, he picks out that R7 or whatever it is, and it happens to be 2 units per acre, he's locked into that. The way the codes are, and I do this over several counties, the way the codes are, you have to pick a particular category that has a lot of things in there that you may or may not be interested in. And all planning departments tend to write the land development code so they don't have to have so many of these categories. In order to tie the developer down to a number of lots, we need to expand the list that he can choose from.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Page, and just for, I know you know, but obviously anybody that doesn't know right now, our county is undergoing a comprehensive review of our land development code, that there are some items in there that are decades old, but that obviously process is set up through the state, and so we expect that to be concluded around October, but can't make that tonight, but I appreciate you entertaining the question.
Your planning director has requested comments from us, and we have some for him.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, hearing no other comments, I'm going to defer this to Commissioner Salter. This is his district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first of all say thank you, buddy, for trying to accommodate the people along Billary Road. The way I look at it, nothing's changed since the last time we heard this. Still got the problem with traffic on Billary Road. And even if it came back without an entrance on Billary Road, I'd still have a problem with that curve, because it was a dangerous curve. I've been down it many, many times. I'm gonna have a hard time supporting any increased density around a 5-point intersection until we figure out what to do with Woodbine Road. So at this time, I'm going to support the Planning and Zoning Board's recommendation to deny the request without objection.
Hearing no objection, that's denied. All right, item number 7, 2019-R-014. Project applicant is Stephen Schindel. This is for an existing zone of neighborhood commercial, R1 single-family residential, proposed zone of highway commercial development. This is in District 4. Do we have, this says represented by Stephen Aiken of Aikens on Demand. Mr. Aiken, if you will come up, and if we have anyone else here tonight in support of this, if you will just prepare that as soon as this gentleman finishes to come up. Again, name and address, and thank you.
Hey, I'm Stephen Aiken regarding the 7980 East Bay Boulevard. Just trying to keep my business local there and wanting to get it approved for us to keep our trucks and trailers and park and work out of this property.
All right, do we, let me see if we've got anybody else to speak, and then we'll open it up to see if anybody's got questions.
All right.
All right, do we have anybody else here tonight in support of this request that wants to speak? And if not, do we have anybody here tonight in opposition of this request that wants to speak? All right, hearing none, I will defer to Commissioner Peach and open it up to the board. Commissioner Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I drive by this lot every day, multiple times a day. It appears to me that it's grown further back, and it's been being cleared more and more. When I first started driving by there, it was very small up front. It's zoned neighborhood commercial because of all the homes in the area. But now that lot's cleared, there's a lot more trucks there. I mean, you're surrounded by R1. I have a hard time going to highway commercial because anything could go in there.
Yeah.
And we keep neighborhood commercial specifically to be compatible with neighborhoods. So I'm having a hard time with the going wide open to HCD.
Is there any way we can not do it fully commercial and still stay there?
I would have to defer to Mr. Ward.
We're not really, I didn't know how to fill out the paperwork and all that too. We're not necessarily wanting it to go commercial. We just really want to stay kind of how we got things going.
Chuck.
Commissioner Peach, in front of you here, you see a rezoning request to HCD, Highway Commercial Development, There's also a conditional use to allow landscaping services within HCD. So Mr. Atkins would need the conditional use in addition to the rezoning request. And there was also a variance reviewed by the zoning board for outside storage within the HCD zoning district as well, if that is approved. Based on that and the previous conversation we had, we cannot place conditions upon a rezoning. Therefore, no, sir, there is no option that I'm aware of currently.
Commissioner Peach,
Yeah.
I may have a question. I don't know if this will help with this. I know sometimes we have to wrestle with these. Through you, maybe, and defer to Sean, do you feel that, well, let me ask you, Commissioner Peach, if the current usage of the lot was okay, and I'm not saying it is, but if you were okay with the current usage, is that something that you feel like maybe we could address as we're going through the land development code? Obviously, this is not the only lot in the county that's being used for landscape type issues. I've seen this come up, and that may be obviously another thing that we need to address. Again, this land development code, I believe, was created in the 80s. I don't know if that's where we're trying to get at, and maybe we could give a state of that, but
Yeah, I mean,
trying to be helpful
that's
there.
kind of where I'm going. I mean, he's a small landscaper, he's a small business, I support the small business, but when we open it up to highway commercial, that could be
Yeah.
anything that goes in there. If you go out of business next year and they sell that lot, it's wide open to highway commercial. So, you know, that area is, I mean, further down East Bay, east on East Bay, there's a lot more highway commercial. There's landscapers 1.9 miles down the road towards that end. This way, we're creeping up towards Hidden Creek and a lot of homes in that area. And the HCD is just, you know, I've got no issue with the trailers there. You know, I see you're all over town and doing your business, but turning that into a highway commercial zone is where I can't get to right now.
Does it have to be highway commercial to stay there?
Right now, it does under the land development code. But, like the chairman, go ahead, Mr.
give me just a second. Commissioner Cole?
Sean, could we, since we are going to review the land development code and we know this is not a one-case scenario, could he table this till after we do the land development code? And then knowing it's something, you come back to us with, maybe with some suggestions to make some adjustments to the code?
There was recently a case that went to the zoning board of similar situation where there was a discussion that was allowed basically, and that's certainly the discretion of the board. If the board wants to table this item and then bring it back at a later date and time, we can certainly do that.
And until then, he would basically, we wouldn't go into an enforcement position.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, because like I said, we've got the school there now, you know, the academy and all that's right there. And I like to think long-term into the future. You know, you're right there right now.
Yeah.
You haven't any
And
complaints
I bought
about
the property across the street and fixing it up, and I want to buy the property from the guy, but I need to find out if I can stay there before I purchase the property.
Right.
I'm not really, I don't care to switch it fully commercial, because no, I don't want, if I do want to sell the property, I don't want a store across the street from my house either.
Right.
But I want to be able to do a little bit of improvement there and maybe put some grass and stuff, you know, and clean it up. But all I want to do is keep my trailers to be able to move, you know, moving in and out of there. Everything on the property right now is not, I can move it in a day. But I do want to be across the street from my house where I can look after my business, and I've been there for 7 years. Yes, I have grown and got more trailers and trucks, but don't look to be getting any bigger. You know, I want to kind of stay where I'm at and just keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I applaud your efforts. I'm glad to hear your business is doing well. It's just that highway commercial, and like you said,
Yeah.
if all of a sudden you sold the property and they put up a, you know,
A store,
something that
yeah.
you wouldn't want. So what I would recommend, I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we deny the request to rezone the highway commercial, but we put a stay on code enforcement until we could look at the land development code to potentially come up with a way that these smaller businesses could be in neighborhood commercial or something, if you're
Okay.
good with that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Is that
You
fair?
clear on what he's
so
asking for?
I can stay there for now, and then would y'all let me know, I guess, when I'll have to come over the board again once that is redeveloped, and then,
What I would ask you to do is, if you will, make sure you have Mr. Ward's office's contact information, which I'm sure you do. Reach back out to them in that August, September timeframe, because it'll probably be coming back to the zoning board, I'm sure, about August before it comes to us for final review in October. And you can make sure, but I think what the board has clearly expressed is there's something we're trying to work with you on. So we're going to deny the zoning, or we're going to put a stay so they won't have any enforcement. So you will be able to continue to operate until at least October. And then we'll revisit the issue.
okay, sounds good.
Commissioner
Yes, sir.
Cole?
Make sure that's good with Roy.
Roy, are you okay with that down there?
Well, you know,
I think we ought to.
we either have a code that we're enforcing or we don't. This is the second stay we've had put on the existing codes. It's the board's decision. Do I think it's a wise decision? That's your decision.
Table it. Just
Thank you.
vote on the table.
Yeah, so is it best to table the action and take,
Well, you can certainly table it to next month.
well, no, I don't want to table. I'm willing to
Okay.
put a stay on it, deny the HCD, but work with this land. We have a lot of small businesses that our land development code is impacting because it was written so long ago. So I think that's an area I'd like to concentrate and look at, and how we impact these small businesses in their neighborhoods, because things are growing to small business, and we need to be able to work with them a little better than we're restricted right now, in my opinion.
All right, that motion's without objection, correct?
Motion without objection.
All right, hearing none, that item's denied with the contingency of the enforcement stay until October, when we're able to comprehensively review the plan. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Y'all have a good night.
All right, item number 8 is, I would have to read this note here. The following agenda items, 2019 R015, 2016 has been withdrawn. So following agenda item 2019 R015 is a comprehensive plan, future land use map amendments following consideration by the Board of County Commissioners at tonight's meeting. Transmittal of public hearing. The items will be forwarded to the Department of Economic Opportunities for review with subsequent consideration by the Board of County Commissioners at an adoption public hearing in calendar year 2019. This is for 2019 R015, project applicant Ball Family Partnership, represented by Becky Cato of Becky Cato LLC, location Woodbine Road. Existing zoning is R1, single family residential. Proposed zoning is planned unit development and highway commercial development. This is in Commission District 1. I believe we have Ms. Cato here tonight. Sir, if you would, just state your name and address for the record. I know you're not Mrs. Cato.
Thank you very much. For the record, Donaldson Hearing, and I'm with the firm of Kotler and Hearing. We're landscape architects and land planners, and we specialize in the area of plan developments, master plan communities, mixed-use development across the state. And I'm going to be assisting Ms. Cato this evening. I'll try to talk a little louder. I'll be assisting Ms. Cato this evening in walking through a couple components of the presentation. We do have a PowerPoint, so if I don't know what I need to do to get that moving. There we go. All right. Because I have to point up there. So with us today, we have a number of members of our team. Of course, the Ball Family Partnership. Mr. Ball is here this evening. We have Mr. Rick Olson with Olson Land Partners. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Rick, because I think you've got a first-class developer that you have who lives right here, just about 3 miles from the site in Pace, Mr. Rick Olson. And Becky Cato will be talking about really the land use and the planning issues. I'm going to focus really more on the concept of master planning and why that's important, and what we have done into the plan, and why we've done what we've done, and why a PUD and a master plan is of most benefit, particularly on a parcel that's a jewel like this, 250-acre parcel here in the county. We also have our engineering team here. I know Mr. Tom Hammond, I think, was planning on being here this evening. So if you have any engineering questions, certainly we could answer those. Let me talk a little bit about Olson Land Partners. Now, I have the absolute honor and pleasure to be able to work with Rick across the state of Florida. Rick does a variety of different types of development, but he is very well recognized and has received numerous awards on his master plan communities. One in Destin, which is known as Nature Walk, spectacular community, been issued awards by the American Society of Landscape Architects, American Planning Association, Home Builders Association, and many more. I've had the opportunity to work in the Nature Walk project. I'm actually working on the second phase of the Nature Walk project because it's been so successful. And that's a residential project. Rick is also very much so involved in other commercial projects, multifamily condominiums, luxury condominiums over on the beach. Right now, he's very close to a certificate of occupancy on the Blue condominium over in Oskaloosa Island. Beautiful facility. And then he also has a passion for the senior community. I'm currently working with Rick across the state on about $400 million worth of senior living and memory care facilities that are absolutely spectacular. The slide that's on the board in front of you right now is called Your Life, and it's located in really a world-class plan development within the city of Palm Beach Gardens that our office has been master planning. It's referred to as Alton. It's a beautiful facility. It's about an $80 million facility. It opened up just in late October. Absolutely spectacular, first-of-class type of a development. So that's what you'll get with Rick Olson, who lives just literally about 3 miles, I think, even from the building here in Pace. So we don't always have that opportunity, and we're also proposing as a component of the Lakes of Woodbine product to have an active adult component that we will market. And so we think that provides a benefit of diversity, and of course that's one of the benefits of planned developments. So at this time, I'm going to ask Becky to come up, walk you through the location of the site, go through the land use and the zoning as it's proposed, and then I'll come back up and walk you through the proposed master plan. And thank you very much for having me here this evening. Looking forward to continuing to work with you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Becky Cato. My address is 5650 Whispering Woods Drive in Pace. As with Mr. Olson, I'm also a resident of Pace, and so I really very much appreciate the interest that the community has taken in this project and their willingness to come out to learn about it. We had a informational meeting where we sent out about 450 invitations. We had about 150, 175 people from the area show up to learn more about the project and to provide us with some input on that. And that says an awful lot about the Pace community, and I'm grateful for that. I said the same thing at the zoning board meeting. It had an awful lot of people come and express their concerns and their interest as well in the project. And I'm grateful for the turnout tonight as well. That says a lot about my community, and I'm very grateful for that. I think we'll find tonight that there's an awful lot that we agree on. Some of the concerns that we heard at the informational meeting and at the zoning board meeting are things that we certainly don't disagree on, and we're looking forward to being, part of the growth in the Pace area and seeing all of those things match up together. So that said, I want to just say a little bit about the land use that's already in place for the area. The property you can see is just a gorgeous, large piece of property. It's very unusual for the Pace area. It has some natural amenities on it that you're not going to find in other places. It's zoned for R1 development, which is consistent with the neighborhood around it. You see those subdivisions there. In the planning of the PUD layout, we are very careful to consider the adjacent residential uses, and Don will talk more about that when we get to that part of it. So this is the overlay of our project onto this property, and you can see right off how it has maximized the natural features. Don will say more about that in a little while. Importantly, the future land use designation for this property is single-family residential, and it always has been. It was zoned and assigned the future land use category in February of 1990. So it's been almost 30 years ago, 29 years ago, that this property was designated for single-family development. A lot of large properties in the Pace area when zoning was put in place, well, and throughout the county really, because of concern of tax implications, a lot of areas that were anticipated to eventually be residential were zoned. The property owners requested they be zoned agriculture. The Ball family, to their credit, didn't do that. They have held on to this gorgeous property for many years. They have paid taxes on vacant residential development, considerably more than they would have had they requested the typical agriculture for that kind of acreage. And so we've all benefited from that. Single-family residential, as I mentioned, allows for the future land use category allows for 4 homes per acre of land, and for this property, that adds up to 962 homes. So that's a starting point for that. The zoning, as I mentioned before, also R1 for this property, 4 units an acre on 70-foot wide lots. This is what we're proposing as a change to the future land use. You can see we're proposing to keep most of the property in the single-family residential future land use category, no change to that. Change to the area along Woodbine Road to commercial future land use, and then the corresponding commercial zoning. You can see where that makes sense with the commercial that's already in place across the street, and then that provides a transition from commercial into residential. The planned unit development that we're requesting be put in place instead of the single-family zoning has a density of 3.325 homes per acre, or only 726 homes. You just had some discussion about how to nail down a specific number of lots on a residential development. A PUD is really the only way to do that. The PUD is unique in that what you see is what you get. A whole lot of work goes into it up front. So this will be limited to 726 homes. So again, the purple area is what will be the PUD. You see those 2 small squares kind of in the middle of our purple area? Those are going to be remained as part of the Ball family homestead. So those will stay there. Why does it matter that the initial zoning for the area was already single-family residential? It matters because that density and that impact of development is what has been anticipated in that area for about 30 years. Importantly, it has been considered in the infrastructure planning by all the relevant agencies. Pace Water and Sewer has actively improved their systems, including purchasing property to the west of our property to expand their capacity. So they're keeping up with the infrastructure needs that they provide. It's also been included in the transportation planning for the area, and you know this is part of the transportation planning organization. Woodbine Road has been identified as needing capacity improvements for a very long time. It really is just a funding issue, and I'm confident that this board can handle that issue. But it's the only road in the Pace area, the only north-south road that is targeted for 4-laning. And so it's important then to keep that in mind in identifying where to put these kinds of developments. So that's already been taken into consideration. And then schools, another big concern, of course, for the community. I know that and you know this, the school district a couple of years ago contracted with a very good growth management planner who has worked with them for a few years now to better line up school planning, with growth management. They've had a couple of joint meetings with this board. And you may recall about a year and a half ago, they explained to you that they know that the center portion of the county needs a new, or is going to need within 10 years, 5 to 10 years, is going to need a new high school, middle school, elementary school. So they know that this development is coming. As part of their planning, they already have anticipated that this property has always been single-family development. That's already worked into that, and I'm confident that they're going to find a way to meet that need. So it's important then to understand why it matters that it's always been that. But that said, why would we change it then? Why not keep with the plan that's been in place for all these years? And the reason, quite simply, is what Mr. Olson saw when he looked at this property, and he said, we can do better. This is a unique piece of property. It's an opportunity to really do some good master plan development. Don's going to talk about that more in just a minute. Planners have learned a few things in the last 30 years, one of which is that large area of single-use development isn't necessarily best. When you have an opportunity like this to have mixed-use plan development, you really want to take advantage of that, and that's why it's appropriate to go ahead and make that kind of change. So that said, I will go ahead and wrap up my part of the presentation just with summarizing that this project that we're proposing is consistent with the county's comprehensive plan in regard to the future land use map with the density requirements. It's consistent with the land development code regulations for a PUD development and locational criteria for commercial development. A PUD is one of those unique types of projects that goes through an extensive review before it comes to the board, and they have to make sure that all the relevant code requirements are met before it's approved. And so we meet those code requirements. The plan really is responsible growth. It is well-designed. It combats urban sprawl. If good development doesn't go in this location, it's just going to go further north, and those residents are going to be also going to our schools and driving on Woodbine Road. So better to locate it where the infrastructure is planned for improvements. Doing it as a large project like this, you have opportunity to design in improvements that you don't get when you do little piecemeal development that really doesn't get anybody's attention. The larger project gets a lot of attention, which can make it harder to accomplish, but it is quite frankly a better way to accomplish development of this property. And so, with that, I'll just end by saying it's also sustainable development. And I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Don, who's going to explain more about the details of the development.
Thank you very much, Becky. So on the screen, again for the record, Donaldson hearing, on the screen is our master plan, and I think we heard one of the speakers say earlier about how much effort, time, and energy goes into developing a master plan, and there's a large upfront cost, but the results of the end product is something that's well worth that cost, and that's why we're looking at going the plan unit development route, as Becky had pointed out. It truly is more sustainable, and as I understand, at least from Becky and from Mr. Olson, there are very few parcels within this area, certainly within the Pace area, 250 acres in size, and so we have a real opportunity here to do something right as opposed to coming in and doing something that might be piecemeal. Here on the screen is a photograph of one of the natural areas, one of the lake areas, and the property is absolutely beautiful. Any of you who have driven by it along Woodbine Road, or you've been on the property itself, it really is breathtaking. And I know it's very important to the Ball family. Mr. Ball is here, and he's going to contain or retain a family estate on the property. And I know an important consideration when he was considering selling his property is, what is the reputation of the developer, and what is going to be the legacy of the property as it moves on. And he selected Mr. Olson based on his experience and what he can deliver deliver and what he's been able to prove and deliver across the state of Florida. So spectacular piece of property. And so when we look at it from a planning perspective, one of the first things we do before we start drawing lines and pencils is trying to understand where are our floodplains, where are our wetlands, where are our natural areas. They're on the screen, and you'll see there's a squiggly line that just came up in green, and those are areas that we identified. And I'm proud to tell you that we're not impacting any wetlands. We have one road crossing, but all of the wetlands there, all of the environmentally sensitive areas, all the quality high vegetation areas are all being preserved as a part of this plan. And again, that's the benefit of the plan unit development. And clustering housing as opposed to just requiring a straight subdivision. A straight subdivision, straight by the code, maybe all 70-foot lots, would have a lot less of respect on the environment. Certainly there's still regulations they have to follow, but we're able to be a little bit more creative, create more open space, create more amenities, which you'll see with the plan. So again, I have the plan up on the screen, and you'll remember that screen, that green squiggly line that I just showed you. This is the yellow line. That's a substantial amount of open space. We really did try to define a line in the sand, a demarcation of where the development would begin and where the development would end. And here, as it falls off to the natural area to the west, it's a good transition. So we've respected all of that as a part of the environment, and it's incorporated into the open space of the plan. We've over 60 some odd acres, about 32.5% open space. Those are open space tracts, not just green areas inside lots or inside road right-of-ways, but open space that we're able to achieve. So this is actually, I was mistaken, 76.61 acres of open space. And that open space are wetlands, wetland buffers, upland areas, as well as our lake areas that we're preserving. And that's the benefit of the plan unit development process. Let me walk you through some of the details of the plan. This is the site, 240.51 acres. The commercial area is 22.18 acres. The Ball Estate is highlighted on the screen. We have some existing lakes, and those are all being preserved and maintained in their existing condition. The wetlands are also being preserved, and in addition to the wetlands, there's some very high-quality uplands that are contiguous to and adjacent to those wetlands, which make them more sustainable and more ecologically viable. We have a core road, or what we call a collector road. If you've read the staff report that's being provided, it will create an intersection that will be the primary ingress and egress out of this community. It will be signalized when the warrants exist, so it'll be a signalized intersection, and it really sets the stage for the project. And all of our little sub-parcels or sub-streets kind of connect to the collector road as you see it. We have 2 points of ingress and egress. So the primary point that I just referred to, which is the main entrance, and of course that will also be the point where the access to the commercial is provided, with an interconnection in between the parcel. And then we have a secondary access point right in, right out, further to the north where you see the orange arrow. And then just to be clear, we are required by the Land Development Code to at least have a right-of-way to connect to the adjacent property to the north, to the up to Able Road. It's our intention that is a private road, I understand, that certainly it would require the permission of the adjacent homeowners association in order to connect. That's Woodbine Springs Plantation. And so we're not pushing to connect that because we know that that's something that the residents really don't want to see. So we'll just bring that to your attention. These are the open space tracts. Those are the 70 plus acres of open space that are throughout the property. Just pointing out a few things again, the Ball Estate, and just because we heard some discussion during the planning board meeting about how is the access going to work to the Ball Estate. Under the agreement with Mr. Olson, the Balls will be able to continue to utilize their existing access that provides a connection to Able Road as long as the Balls retain that as a family estate. At the point that it's sold for another purpose or another use, that particular access basically would sunset and would go away. And I've got an enlargement of it so that you can see how that works, because some people were questioning really how will that work. So here's that location, and you can see on the screen in yellow, that's the existing access that goes into the Woodbine Springs Plantation development connecting to Able Road. That's what they use today, if any of you have been over that way to get to the Ball Estate. So they will be able to continue to deal with that, and that will be gated. So we'll put gates on there. There'll be electronic gates with RFID readers. In other words, you pull up, a little radio reader will open the gate and the gate will close. Nobody else in the subdivision within the Lakes of Woodbine will have any rights, any permission whatsoever to be able to either walk across that or to utilize that for vehicular access. And I know that was a concern of a couple of residents that came up, so I just figured I'd put that on the record just to alleviate that one concern. Also, why I'm on the slide, if you studied our plan, one of the things that you'll note that we intentionally did to be respectful to the neighbors, because the existing zoning is R1 and it would allow for 70-foot lots. We're proposing 70-foot lots on our northern boundary adjacent to the single family, as well as on our southern boundary. But we've taken it a step further. And again, this is another one of the benefits of the planned development. In addition to having the 70-foot lots, we are proposing, and shown on the PUD master plan, is a 10-foot landscape tract that is separate from the lots, that will be owned and maintained in perpetuity by the Woodbine Lakes Property Owners Association. So that will be a perpetual landscape area. I was out there today. It is pretty well heavily vegetated, so a lot of the existing vegetation in that area will be able to remain. We've got a little cross-section here on the screen. It will remain in place. If there's an area that needs to be supplemented, it will be supplemented. But in addition, we're proposing to provide a 6-foot wood fence. And that wood fence is not going to be located on the Woodbine Springs Plantation property. It's going to be located all the way back on the back of the residential lot. So the green space, per se, will be the advantage of the adjacent residential property owner. So, and that occurs on both the north elevation as well as the south elevation, so, or south property line. Then just to kind of walk you through some of the other pieces that we have, which are benefits to the plan unit development. We have a large amenity area. We have 3 open space tracts right at the project entrance as you come in. They total about 8.5 acres in size. These are these green areas right here. Those are a part of it. One of those will be used for our mail kiosk. The larger area, which is about 6.5 acres, will be partially passive open space with trails and other recreational activities, but we'll have a clubhouse and a pool and other amenities which will be available to all the residents of the Lakes of Woodbine, which again increases property values, increases amenities within the community. It'll be located on the green area. I know that you've seen in your staff report some of the visuals that were provided of conceptually what would occur there. But it's a very nice pool environment, somewhat of a resort type of a style with cabanas and trellises. Just a couple of visuals to give you some insight of what that might look like. As far as the lots, we have a diversity of lot sizes, and that's something that is important. I know there's some discussion, well, why don't you just do all 70-foot lots? Well, the reality is when it comes to sustainability and it comes to housing options and planned development, it's good to have diversity. And here we have diversity that will provide for not only economic diversity, diversity in affordability, but also in diversity in the size of a home, what you have to take care of. So we have the larger lots are probably going to appeal to families. The smaller lots, the 50-foot series lots, probably would appeal more toward empty nesters or retirees. And then we have some smaller lots, our 40-foot series, which we see as kind of being geared and marketed toward our active adult community. Again, something smaller. The world today is going smaller, not necessarily bigger, because we can do some great things with the design. And when we're able to reduce the lot size, what we're doing is we're taking all of that land and we're putting it into open space. Trust me, as a planner, we can fit 726 lots on there, but it wouldn't be a pretty plan like you see in front of you. It wouldn't be as sustainable. It might meet your land development regulations. We could go forward and plat it, but it wouldn't be something that really will build value and be sustainable in the long term. Some of the houses, this is the 40-foot series, 50-foot series, and the 70-foot series, or 70-foot series, variety, different materials, some with brick, some with clapboard siding, some with wood. So very nice variety and diversity of housing that will be provided throughout the community. And this will be phased. I know when you'll see a larger development, and I guess this is probably one of the larger developments that you would see here in Pace, that you think, well, it's going to be there all at one time. We are proposing multiple phases of a development. We have 4 phases of development, and we believe, based on the current absorption rates in Pace and the Santa Rosa and the Milton area, that the absorption is going to be probably at least 7 to 8 years. And you could look at what the number of homes, based on the last reports that we have seen. The latest is we had done a study in 2017 when we first started this project, and the absorption at that time of new home sales in 2017 was somewhere around 550 single-family dwelling units. That's probably up some, up maybe 15 to 20%. So maybe 700 in total amongst the various subdivisions you have. So we think our absorption, maybe 70, 75 units a year, will probably give us a build. Maybe a good year we might go up to 100. Will give us about an 8-year build up. That's what we're projecting. I don't think we could anticipate any sooner. And we wouldn't be able to CO the first home, I don't think, for probably 18 to 24 months. So it's 24 months before you would see the first home. So why a planned unit development? It provides for innovative and creative design. It combats urban sprawl exactly the way your growth management plan suggests that. It preserves the natural resources, provides for functional open space and amenity as kind of required by your comprehensive plan and land development regulations. It enables us to protect the natural resources and scenic resources, long-term sustainability. It provides the diversity of housing types, including diversity and affordability. It promotes property values. We'll have a property owners association. They will maintain all of the common areas. They will also promulgate regulations dealing with all of the single-family homes, rules and regulations to ensure a quality community that is maintained sustainably in the long term. Private roads will be privately maintained, so it won't be your burden. And then we've created interconnectivity between uses. So the interconnectivity between the residential and the non-residential is an important component, because we do want them to, in today's world, we look for the opportunity to mix uses, to create a compatible relationship between the various properties. And as I have spoken with Becky Cato on a number of occasions, this is one of the last large parcels you have. It really would be a disappointment if we didn't take the opportunity to plan it as a planned unit development as opposed to allowing it to move forward with piecemeal development. Let me talk quickly about the commercial and some of the commitments that we are willing to make on the commercial. First, Woodbine Road, and this property is beautiful. 3,000 feet of frontage. There's beautiful trees there. We are dedicating 15 feet of right-of-way at no cost to the county to support the future widening of Woodbine Road. We're also proposing to provide a 30-foot landscape buffer so that we can retain that existing tree line, so that we can add additional trees and landscaping. This is what it looks like today. So we're proposing to retain about 30 feet of that in the front. It's absolutely spectacular, of course, now with spring, with all the leaves coming out on the property. But this is what we don't want to see. We don't want to see and we're not suggesting that that's exactly what you see, but often with just a straight subdivision with a lack of controls, you do have some properties that aren't treated and maintained as well as they can be. Instead, we want to take an environment like this and be able to have a frontage that builds value to the entire Lakes of Woodbine project and builds value to that commercial development that makes it special, building value so that we can bring in quality commercial users that are neighborhood related, that are basically local in nature, that support the local economy, and are not just the nationals that you see out there. But we have to create something special to be able to attract that type of tenant. We just have a few visuals of what some of the commercial might look like. Again, relatively small scale. We're not looking at multi-story buildings, smaller buildings that are nicely done, nicely articulated in style, a variety of different, again, local users. Again, there will be not only an overall association, master association, there also will be a commercial properties owners association. We will regulate the signage on the street, the monument signs will all be coordinated and consistent. While we certainly want creativity and individual identities for our users, we also want it tied together with consistency. Same thing with architecture. While diversity is wonderful, we want to have those things tied together so it is a quality environment, quality materials. So in conclusion, and I'm wrapping up here, and I thank you so much for your time. The applicant, as you know, has worked very diligently over a fairly extended period of time with your staff, and we think we are delivering a great project. And as Becky pointed out, I don't think there is a significant amount of disagreement from what we've heard from the residents. They have some concerns with infrastructure. I think we all share those same concerns, but the development is a quality development, and we have the opportunity to bring it forward. As Becky had pointed out, the project has been determined to be consistent with your land development regulations and your comprehensive plan, which promote the concept of plan unit development. That's why it's in there, so that people take and do something a little bit more innovative, and we think it's going to be very much so a positive benefit to the overall community. We understand that there's been a significant amount of discussion about infrastructure and schools, and we recognize that. We also recognize that those are policy issues. Those are policy issues that we believe that this board has a very thoughtful approach and plan for addressing. And in the event that this board adopts those policies, every single homeowner, every single building permit, every single person who might go and purchase something, whether it's a sales tax, will be responsible to pay. Those are policy issues that you put forth. You know, today we just have to work with the regulations that are established today, but we certainly commit to abiding by any future regulations that this board puts in place, and I know that you'll be thoughtful about it. Just a quick economic impact update. This is based on the 2005-2006 National Home Builder Study for Santa Rosa County, and extrapolated for this project. Initial economic benefit about $70 million. That's capital hard dollars that are spent in the community. That then results in about $6.3 million in governmental fees and taxes, 1,505 jobs, and then on a recurring basis, every year after there, about $18.6 million in ripple effect. That's money spent in the grocery stores, money spent with the doctors, money spent everywhere. So it's a ripple effect, but then an additional $3.21 million in taxes and 447 jobs. So just a little bit of facts and figures there. I thank you very much. I thank you for taking the time to listen, and we certainly look forward to your feedback and comments and the comments of the public as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone here tonight to speak in favor of this project? We'd like to stick with the same order. Yes, sir. I see a couple people coming. If you will, just same way as the other cases, try to work the order out amongst yourselves, and we'll keep it to a 3-minute time limit.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. Tom Hammond, Hammond Engineering. I live at 6216 Billary Road, Pace, Florida. I'm the engineer that developed this master plan in conjunction with county staff, planning department, and engineering department, and the state of Florida Water Management District, and the Pace Water System, had a couple of meetings with them. So if you have, I'm in favor of the project, and if you have any questions about that master plan that they're showing you and how it was developed, then please address them to me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Finally got somebody that doesn't need an introduction, but we still need a name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, Wendell Hall, 5169 Road Trail. I'm here tonight because, you know, I'm like a lot of people. I live on Woodbine Road, and we all know, you know, without me telling you again, we have one heck of a problem there, and it's called traffic. It's called too many cars in such a small road. And I moved here in 1987, and back when it was nice to be able to move and move about, and do your business up and down Woodbine Road, but those days are gone. We know that. The point is, the reason that I'm here in favor of this development is, do the math, just plain and simple. How will there be less people, less cars on the road, on Woodbine Road, if we go with a strictly an R1, or if we go with this planned development? 900 something versus 726. It is density, Commissioner Salter. That's what concerns me, is how I can safely get out of my subdivision, which by the way is Woodbine Springs, and make it onto Woodbine Road and go about and do my business, because there's days there now, and it's every day during certain hours, that it's not safe to try to come out of our neighborhood. That's how bad it's gotten, and y'all know that. And I'm very encouraged to hear that there's some plans in place to try to alleviate that. It's encouraging to hear this developer say that they're willing to donate a strip of their privately owned land, the Ball property, to help alleviate that problem. So I ask you to just do the math. Let's talk about less cars, and we have to go with that. Another reason that I'm in favor of it is, who do I want as my neighbor? Who do I want to back up to my subdivision on the south side? Do I want a well-planned subdivision that's private streets, with a homeowners association that will regulate how the property is kept, and whether there's unfavorable buildings being brought in and everything? Which do I want? What's it going to do to my property values? I am very impressed with what I see about this development. I really am. I think there's been a lot of hard work put into it to make it work. So those are my 2 points. Who do I want as neighbors? What will be best for me? And how can I put fewer cars on Woodbine Road, or keep from adding? Because if it goes to R1, there's going to be a lot more cars. There's going to be a lot more people. So those are my points, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good evening. Just name and address for the record.
Commissioners, Paul Salter, 6156 Enfinger Road. I arrived in Santa Rosa County in 1964, and that was in a hospital here on Stewart Street. So I've been here for all my life, and I'm going to tell you something. Growth is good, and we have to have growth to continue. And this planned unit development is something that we need more of. We not only need this one, we need more of them in this county, because this is well planned out. Everybody can see it's going to bring plenty of jobs here. And also, you know, we need to welcome these people that are coming, just like others that came after I did. So I do believe this is a great development. We need to move forward with this, as Wendell said, and I'd encourage you to vote yes on this tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else here tonight to speak in favor of this project at this time? All right. Due to the request of my senior commissioner, we are going to take we will take a 10-minute break, and so just for the record, we will start at 7:40. We'll reconvene.
had a discussion with one of them, and he had all these people that were in this meeting. Like Pat, and sidewalk, and all the ones that helped with the homeless. Right about the middle of the, we are fire in Rosa Road. When they all got, I told them, one thing he did, he went into this politicians, well, we're very involved, you know, we're very conscious of the guys that the road, I mean, but I've been talking with you after 2 years. He said, but we're, I said, the problem is, and he did not mention the whole time, he gave you all the things, but the one thing he didn't say, we can't do this because we don't have any money. And that's the answer. And the one thing they got is, and everybody knows it now, they just started. These commissioners raised buildings. They ran average of about 75, let's say 75,000 average, almost half of that. Every one of them, and every one of them donated the maximum amount. Some of them, another company in Bedford, the company donated $1,000. And then you had Lady Bear donated $1,000. Mama Bear donated $1,000. And the whole group donated $1,000 each.
If you will, just try to make your way back to your seats. You can just try to make your way back to your seats for us, please.
How's the grandbabies?
All right, thank you so much. We're actually able to get started back on time. All right, now we will hear from any of folks that want to speak in opposition. If you will, just make your way to the podium. Again, same as everything else, let you work out the order amongst yourselves. Just remember to state your name and address, and remember that we've got a 3-minute timer just so we can hear from everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Dan Horvath, 5012 Paddock Place. That's Woodbine Springs subdivision. I'm speaking in opposition. I am wowed, by the way, by the presentation that we've been hearing. First at the presentation that the developer had, and then the hearing board, the planning board, and then tonight. They do a great job, and they paint a beautiful picture, and I'm wowed by it, and frankly, I was torn. I hear our former sheriff talk about the lesser density, and that sounds good. The plan unit development sounds good. The developer says they're going to follow the code and protect our wetlands. They're going to preserve the lakes. They're going to have green space. They're going to do all this wonderful stuff. However, when I think about it, I realize they have to do that anyway. And even if they're in compliance with R1 zoning, they still have to preserve the wetlands. They can't build on the lakes. They have to have roads and streets and setbacks. So the fact that you can take the total acreage and multiply it by 4 and say you're going to have 900 some houses, that's just not true. Because when you back out all the property that you can't build on, you're losing about 1/3 of the total number of developable acres. And then this core of houses that they have for the active adults like me, senior citizens, I've heard it said that we drive less because we're older folks. Well, if you're like me and go to as many doctor's appointments as I do, I'm on the road more now than I was when I was working. I'd go to work, I'd come home at night. That's the only time I was on the road. Now I'm on the road all the time. And when you look at those pictures and those renderings, beautiful streetscape, what's missing, there are no cars on the road. If you back up a line of cars all along Woodbine, that's what you're going to have with this development. So I really think the fact of the matter is you will have more homes and more density with the plan unit development than if you went with the R1 development. And all this talk about preserving wetlands, doing all these lovely things, it sounds like a great development, but I really think the density is going to be greater, especially with all those senior citizen homes at 40-foot lots. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Name and address. Thank you.
Cheryl Swanson, 5012 Paddock Place. I also live in Woodbine Springs. I would like to start out talking a little bit about the commercial area. When I first saw it, I was kind of torn too, because I'm a shopper, and I thought, oh boy, this looks really spiffy. But then I started thinking about the nature and character of Woodbine Road, and if you look at the commercial development that we do have, much of it is low brick buildings. We have a pharmacy, we have a church, I guess that's kind of semi-commercial, we have a lot of doctor's offices, we have a vet. These buildings, while they're spiffy and kind of attractive, I don't really think they fit architecturally overall with our road. When the developer spoke, I asked about why we needed to have this additional commercial development, and he said because all these people who move in here are going to have needs. And I understand that, but then I started thinking about that some more. I thought, well, at one end of Woodbine, we have 2 gas stations. We have 2 gas stations at the other, needs. We have an urgent care center that is being built on the south end of Woodbine, health need. We have a wonderful grocery store, which I'm really grateful for, the Publix up at the north end, a need, food. So I'm thinking, okay, how many more needs are actually going to be filled, as opposed to maybe wants, in this big commercial development that is going to conflict with the general character of what is going on in the road now and not necessarily meet needs. And also I'm thinking about Woodbine Plaza, which some of you are familiar with. It's kind of empty or half empty, and I think that that could be developed if there were more needs, but I don't know who owns it or what the circumstances are there. The other concern I have, and I hate to say this because I'm not fully informed, is that W.D. Horton is going to be the builder. And I know we will be hiring local electricians, and he would do that too, or the company would, but I am a little concerned about his reputation, which is not very good from what I've heard. But some of you may know more about that than I do. But we're being told about this beautiful, spiffy development, but then I went to the website for W.D. Horton. I know he builds millions of homes all over the country, and I know the comments on the website aren't necessarily representative. You're going to get more negative ones, but the negative ones that were on there were in the thousands. His average rating was a 2.3 out of 5, and the stories that were told about him not following up when people had serious problems were pretty hard to digest. So those are my 2 takes on this particular development. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swanson. Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record. Thank you.
Elaine Smith, 4935 Paddock Place in Pace. I know each of you already know about our roads and schools are at overcapacity levels, so I'm not going to waste my time on that. But I would like to rebut the misleading statements that were quoted and printed in the March 25th Pensacola News Journal. First one by Mr. Parker stating, as chairman, the chairman added he had heard from residents who would prefer the board nix the project altogether, but said they couldn't do that since the plans met all requirements based on the current zoning. I have clearly, still quoting, I have clearly been told by several citizens in that area that they don't want more traffic on that road, Parker said. However, state law clearly dictates that we cannot tell someone that they cannot develop property that is already zoned appropriately. This property is zoned residential, and we cannot stop them from developing it into a residential area. Mr. Parker, as you knew then, when that was quoted, the Ball property before you tonight is not requesting to be developed residentially. It already has that zoning. The plans here and now submitted do not, as you stated, meet the current zoning. That is what you were going to approve or disapprove tonight. Mr. Hall, I was going to quote him from here, but he said it again tonight. He stated that he wants to help our area in several other issues. In fact, the exact opposite of what Mr. Hall stated is true. He omitted all the facts that were generated from the traffic study that is included and has been submitted to you, in fact, in this actual packet, which reads, for those that didn't read the 560 pages, the total daily trips generated by the maximum allowable development of the commercial area is therefore 15,825 trips. That's the commercial. This is in your packets. And below there, it says the existing SFR future land use category, and it goes on to talk about what would happen if that 22 acres remained homes. The same amount of area would put in 88 single-family homes. And you know what those would generate? 88 homes, 838 daily trips. This is in your packet. So that is completely false. The driveway easement. The use of this driveway easement would require the Ball family to leave their property, drive between a row of houses, cross a street, and drive between another row of houses, all before they arrive on their easement. If approved, the only purpose this easement would serve is to provide a back door for all 700-plus homes in the commercial strip visitors to enter onto Woodbine Springs Plantation, which are privately maintained roads. And so, therefore, when this property is sold or developed, the easement must be removed, period. And D.R. Horton was just fined $24,000 for wetland violations committed on our neighbor, Escambia County. This is about 2 weeks ago.
Thank you.
The
If
Ball
you would just try
property
to wrap it
before
up.
you contains wetlands. I assume you're all hoping on a wing and a prayer that nothing occurs in this county.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir, if you just make your way, name and address for the record.
Good evening, Harold Hawkins, 5033 Roland Road in Pace. I'm the new guy to Pace. My wife and I moved here, we started looking, we could live anywhere in the United States we wanted. 5 years ago, we made a decision, after a lot of due diligence, that we would settle here. So 2 years ago, we found that home on Roland Road, and we did it. Where did we move from? California. What's Southern California? Land of the PUDs, high-density housing, overcrowding, etc. Now, we moved here specifically because of our political views, our religious beliefs are right in alignment with the majority of the people right here in our community. So I just want to say that I oppose the rezoning because when I look at the net numbers, like the gentleman that spoke 3 in front of me, you know, the gross amount is approximately 900, but if it stays at R1, when you back out the wetlands, when you look at the usable land that could be developed for housing, it's roughly about 500, 525 homes. So changing to the R2 kicks it up to the 726. So my concerns are high density and the clustering housing. So I asked the board, I ask you, what was presented on the slide earlier was responsible growth. Is this responsible growth in our community? That's what I really ask you. My specific concerns are the high density, the clustering of housing, the lack of infrastructure on the roads, the overcrowding of the schools, and lastly, crime. Commercialization sometimes leads to crime. I've seen it. I've seen it in California. I think PUDs are great when you have a lot of land and you can manage it responsibly. I think in this particular situation, it's not as responsible. Lastly, I am in favor of impact fees, and that's all I have to say. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, sir, for your comments.
All right.
Yes, ma'am, name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Sharon Dickinson Miller. My address is 3313 Windy Oaks Drive. I live in Woodbine Springs Plantation. The first thing I want to say is Wendell Hall does not represent Woodbine Springs Plantation Homeowners Association because we disagree with him. So, why do I not want the Ball property rezoned? Number one, that half-mile strip of commercial property. Like others have said, that's going to create a lot more traffic. If you look at their little plan, they've got the one entrance with the light, then they have another little entrance further down. What are people going to use? Are you going to try to get out on a busy road without a light or with the light? The traffic is going to back up even more with all those people going to that light to get in and out. So that's a problem for me. Again, as some have said, the density. I think the density is going to be more with the PUD than if you left it as it is, R1. Schools. Schools are a major issue. Something just came out in the Pensacola News Journal on the 27th. There are 10 Santa Rosa County schools that are over 100% capacity. 3 of them, Dixon Primary, Dixon Intermediate, and Sims, are right there by us. There are 8 high schools that are over 93%. One of them is the Pace High School. So I don't care what you say, our schools are overcrowded. We have to have new schools. This is going to have a major impact on our schools. Right now they are rezoning schools for our schools right there that the kids in Woodbine go to. How are you going to put another 700 families in there when you are already rezoning those schools because they're over capacity? The builder, again, like someone else said, D.R. Horton. Ask anybody from Ashley Plantation what they think of Mr. Horton. He built that plantation, that division, I do believe, and they have major problems. Again, in the newspaper, just the other day, was the deal about him filling in wetlands. We already have flooding problems in Woodbine Springs Plantation. If he starts screwing up our wetlands, we're going to have more flooding problems. That, again, is an issue for me. You guys are spending $200,000, I'm assuming that passed, to put on the ballot in August for a 1% sales tax increase. You're not going to get it. I mean, we're not going to stop it. The people aren't going to vote for it. So you are throwing $200,000 of taxpayers' money down the toilet. A better way to be used for that $200,000 is get a study done for impact fees. I can go through all of these counties and all of these different towns that have impact fees and what it does for them.
Ma'am, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
Ma'am, we're talking about this man's property rights tonight. We're not talking about impact fees, moratoriums,
I'm
sales
talking
tax.
about, we do not have the infrastructure
Understand, but
to
we need to stay
maintain that.
focused on what tonight's about, and that's this man's property rights and whether or not we're going to change it. We all are aware of all that. And this
Transportation
board-
concurrency
this
is a
board
state law
gonna
that
have-
requires each local government in Florida to adopt a
Ma'am.
comprehensive plan. May I please finish this?
No, ma'am. No.
And
You're-
implement requirements that adequate basic services
3 minutes are up.
provided at the same time or concurrent with any new development.
Ma'am,
So
I'm
you
going to
do
ask
not
you to
have
leave
the
the
right
podium.
to grant that
Thank you.
without the roads in the school.
I will just address any future people before you come up. One of the reasons I apologize, I had asked for staff to have somebody to hand them out as they came in, but they are available on the table over there. We are going to have 2 workshops in April specifically to address budget issues and infrastructure issues. Tonight is not the applicable time. You can voice your opinion, obviously, on budget and infrastructure. We always welcome those comments, but it is not the time that this board is going to address those issues as far as in detail. It can't be done in a very condensed type format. So I just wanted to notify you of that as you come up. Please, thank you for being here. State your name and address for the record. I will reiterate, it is no different than if you go to a courthouse and you have a judge there. It needs to be orderly. It needs to be civil. If we have somebody else that stays at the podium after I say 3 minutes, I will consider that you're disrupting the meeting, and I will ask the deputy to escort you out. Thank you.
Well, hello, Commissioners. My name is Kathy Harris. I live in Woodbine Springs. My address is 5333 Road Trail. I've been there for a long time, about 26 years, and I love it. I'm from Illinois originally, and I was very drawn to this area. I think it's wonderful. We raised our child here, and he's an adult now, and he's doing beautifully, and I thank this area for giving us that opportunity to do that. The reason I'm here is because I'm very worried about Woodbine Road. Very worried about it. A year ago, there was a fatality. I know we all know who about it. A little girl by the name of Stormy Harrell and her older sister, Michaela Sidney, were killed by a drunk driver. They were in the middle road. It just breaks my heart, and it happened on Sunday, and we were coming back we went to church, and then we went out, and then we came back, and we saw the ambulance there. And we didn't know what happened. And then I looked on the Nextdoor app, and they said that there was a terrible accident, and these kids died. I just wondered, if we had had ample road usage there, if we had had 4 lanes rather than 3 lanes, I do believe these kids would be alive today. Somebody that I know knew somebody that was right behind them, and that person said that there was nowhere for the mother to go. And with that in mind, I'm just thinking I would really hope that we can reconsider doing anything that would expand and expound upon the issues of Woodbine Road. And I was very glad that Wendell Hall did say it's dangerous. it is dangerous. And I personally don't believe that these kids should have died like that at all, because that's just the way I feel about it, and I think it makes sense. And I know that there's not a lot of money in the budget to widen Woodbine Road, and we really need to. I even checked with J.R. Williamson, and it was House Bill 4391, and it was killed by the chairman of the committee, so it's not going to be on the project for Florida monies in 2019. So I'm urging you to please take a look at all this and please reconsider. I don't begrudge the Balls at all for selling their property at all. It's theirs. They can do what they want. But I do think that we do need to have more sensical things that are in place before we can go ahead and arbitrarily do this. And also, too, when they were saying that in the future they would like to share our road that was called White Way, and now the sign is gone. But just coming off on that, that's going to increase the traffic just in our subdivision. My husband works in Mobile. If he doesn't leave at a specific time, he's going to spend 20 minutes on the road just getting to Highway 90.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alison Serrane. I live in 4245 North Cambridge Court, Hammersmith, and I am here. The first thing I want to say is there was a lot of work into designing the development, and it's very nice. It looks very nice. I don't have a problem with the housing. I have a problem with the commercial area. The reason is, and I believe I read through their paperwork, and most of the statements are vague. There's not a lot of facts behind it. There's numbers. Sometimes it can be hard to understand what they mean. But according to the plan area focus, land use is saying that for an HCC zoning, it should be encouraged that within a half a mile you have a major intersection, right? And the developers are saying, we're going to put a light, therefore we have a major intersection. No. I've looked at the Florida intersection design guide, and that's not, I mean, yes, that was 20 years ago, old standards. You know, we're building upon things that were designed a long time ago, and that's how we do it. But if one looks at this, it doesn't qualify as an intersection. Intersections have to have proper turning points, like right here. This is going to be a commercial area. It's going to have a lot of big trucks, big cars, you know, bringing merchandise. They have to have a safe way to get in and out of the intersection without having to do multiple turns and things of the kind. You cannot get a semi-wide with an intersection that doesn't have enough width. So there is that. There is the fire trucks. There is all kinds of emergencies where, you know, now we add in things, traffic to the area that cannot sustain it. I'm not going to repeat the numbers, but I want this to be an R1 because, like it was mentioned before, if we do a business, a commercial area, that's going to add another 14,000 cars on the road versus 800 or 1,000. I'd much rather take the 1,000. Woodbine is unsafe as it is right now with that third lane in the center being turned for left and right. So those are the things that I really don't think, or I think you should carefully look at the rules and regulation and make sure that they meet them. I believe that they can work with the county and the community and make it more amicable and safer. And that's the point that I think we need to do. I mean, I want the growth, but it needs to be responsible. We need to build thinking for the future and build with the new rules and regulations of safety, not with those that were built 30 years ago. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening. Name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Philip Hoffman. I live in Woodbine Springs at 5165 Road Trail. In the last couple months, we've seen commissioners, love fest with builders, and growth is good. Growth is jobs, homes equal jobs. But when you're suffering in choke traffic, your kids can't go to your own schools, growth isn't good, it's evil as hell. And the fact is, Olin, in many derivations, is one of your biggest campaign contributors. And yet you sit here, a real estate broker, receiving big donations for your reelection campaign from people that are going to make decisions that are positive towards their real estate deals, towards their zoning. It smells, sir. It smells like 2-week-old sardines. It's wrong. And everybody here, especially those in the Santa Rosa County voters against overcrowded roads and school, knows that. Do what you think is right, because we don't think you represent us. We think you represent the builders. That's going to be a problem come election time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record. Thank you.
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. The proposed commercial future land use category will allow a maximum density of 357,059 square feet of buildable space. This was calculated using an equation provided by county staff, which accounts for parking area and pervious cover requirements. The specialty retail use land use category was assumed. There is no specific development plan for the commercial property at this time. The daily trip generation rate for specialty retail is 44.32 trips per 1,000 square feet. The total daily trips generated by the maximum allowable development of the commercial acreage is therefore 15,825 trips. The existing future land use category allows a maximum of 4 dwelling units per acre. The 22.18 acre commercial parcel could therefore support 88 single-family units. Land use category 210 single-family homes in the trip generation manual has a daily trip rate of 9.5 trips per unit. The 88 single-family units would therefore generate 838 daily trips. There would be no internal or pass-by capture. And I have a few questions. Mr. Parker, are you aware that the developer of this property, Olson's Group, contributed to every one of your election campaigns?
I don't remember if they contributed to the first one or not. But everyone in the public to address that and Mr. Hoffman's remarks. You know, God laid on my heart in 2015 to run for this office. I looked at it as an impossible feat. Thought it was crazy to try to be younger than any county commissioner that's ever ran for this office in Santa Rosa County. God wouldn't shake that off of me for 5 months through fervent prayer, seeking counsel, talking with my pastor and other very wise men and women in the community. I led to run for office, and I quickly learned that to run for any office, local, state, or federal, it takes an exorbitant amount of funds. God opened the door and allowed people to contribute to campaigns, over 200 contributors to my first campaign, okay? Because many people don't have the time, or they don't want to be the whipping post on social media, or when the media outlet comes out to be portrayed in a negative light week after week, but they want to ensure that we have good government. And what that means is that we will not always do things that you will agree upon every time, but it means that we will be wise as much as we can through being informed and seeking counsel. And that is why people contribute and support campaigns. So yes, ma'am, has Mr. Olson contributed to a campaign? Absolutely. Mr. Olson also attends church with me. I've seen him there regularly for many years. You ask yourself, should I preclude myself from voting? I asked our attorney that months ago. It would be much easier for me to say, I don't want to have to vote on this. Nobody can be mad at me. However, I have no legal grounds to say I can't run. Anyone here could send me a campaign check and I will deposit it in my campaign account. And no different than I heard a pastor say a drug dealer can come in and put money in the offering plate. He'll knock off the cocaine and use it for God's glory. So I don't like the innuendos, but there you go. There are many people, I see people here actually in favor and opposition tonight that have contributed to my political campaign. So there's that. That's an entirety response. I won't answer any more questions. I'll give you 30 more seconds and we're going to move on to the next person.
Let me take a moment to say that both the Florida and United States Supreme Court have recognized the fact that campaign contributions are a right of those people making them, and that they are absolutely, in the case of the Florida process, very transparent and very regulated, and they are not the grounds for a recusal. And as a matter of fact, each of these commissioners up here is required to vote and not abstain unless the item would inure to their personal, private gain. So Mr. Parker has no reason to recuse himself. It would be improper for him to do so.
I did not ask you that question. Can you vote or can you not vote? I asked you if they contributed to your campaign. I only needed a yes or a no, but thank you for the lengthy, inspirational speech. According to Public Information Campaign contribution records, in 2016, $3,500 was accepted for the first 3 months of your 2020 pre-file campaign. $8,000 has been invested. Mr. Cole, excuse me, you're going to use my time. Please let me speak to Mr. Cole.
Listen, okay, this isn't you come in here and run the meeting, okay? I'm the chairman. I'm going to run this meeting. I told you you had 30 more seconds. Your time is up. If anybody wants to see anything about campaign finance for any of us, you can go to votesantarosa.com. It is all 100% public record. Your time has expired. We're going to move on to the next gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we know. Now we know how you control the meeting. Thank
Yes, sir. Please come forward, name and address for the record. Thank you. The speak button right there. Thank you.
Okay. Jonathan Peters, 3500 Quail Drive, Winfield Subdivision. Thank you for your time tonight. I moved here from New York, and values moving to the Pace, Santa Rosa area were traffic and schools. It was the big draw. It was a real heartfelt value that we were sold on. We really feel like at Winfield that the development and the rights of this Ball property infringe on those two values. And we'd like to ask that the commission vote yes for roads and schools and put that as a primary goal and target for us in the near future.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up, because one of the things we're going to ask, and already have asked, is this August to move the half-cent sales tax to the full 1 cent. You heard the lady earlier proclaim we won't get it. We need that for that, and we need folks that are talking about schools to attend the school board meeting, because we don't have any bellywick with the school board. So you need to be as fervent, as strong as you are here. Go to a school board meeting. I wonder too why schools haven't been built. I got grandkids in schools that got to get shipped, halfway around their elbow to get to their ear. And I don't like them being on a school bus for an hour. That's probably why we got some of the overcrowding on the roads, because moms and dads don't want their kids sitting on a school bus for an hour, so they're going to take them to school. My daughter does. I don't want my grandkids on a school bus for an hour. So support us that way. We're all in this together. I mean, some people get a little flared up about things. I get a little flared up sometimes about things. We need your help, is what I'm saying. We need the sales tax. We need y'all out there working for a sales tax so we can fix Woodbine Road. The school board needs your opinion on building more schools and your help there. So I'm glad to listen to folks like you that are willing to come aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. I feel strongly about impact fees so that the people who are becoming residents of Pace, when they purchase their home and they want to contribute to the building of schools and infrastructure, that they'll pay for it in their house, just like I did years ago when I purchased a house in Pace.
And I said we weren't going to get into this tonight.
Yes, sir. But you
let's
brought
look
up the
for that.
sales
Let's
tax.
look for that in a future workshop that this gentleman and this gentleman right here are going to hold. We're going to discuss that totally.
And
So,
one last
let's get to
concern I
those
have.
workshops.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cole. One last concern I have is the impact to neighborhoods and especially flooding. When we consider some of the events that we've had in some of the subdivisions in the Pace area, it's a real concern. And it's one that I know the developers and the builder are aware of, but we haven't seen a real master plan or a real good contribution of engineering and experience and a real plan to prevent flooding. And that's a major concern of our subdivision just across the street from this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Just name and address for the record. Thank you for coming.
Nicole Hardy, 3548 Stratford Lane. I just have a question. I'm a little concerned about the high-density commercial portion of this. I know there's been a lot of talk that there will be no extra density, and it seemed to me it sounded like no extra traffic on the roads, but I pulled up in the packet today from HSA Consulting Group, the Lakes at Woodbine traffic analysis that was done. It's in your packet. And they talk specifically about the 22.18 acres of proposed commercial use and the increase in traffic on Woodbine Road and other surrounding roads. What it seems to me, and I'm hoping you can clarify if I'm reading this incorrectly, but just that small 22-acre portion that is going to be changed into the high-density commercial from R1, it looks to increase the number of trips to between 11,696 and 14,987 more trips per day than just the 88 single-family units that would be there if it was still R1. Do you have
Mr. Chairman,
any comments
if
about
I may,
Go ahead, Sean.
for staff, the commercial piece of property that you're looking at is what we consider a large-scale amendment. Okay, so we're changing that future land use map basically from R1 or single-family residential to commercial.
Right.
Anything over 10 acres in size where you amend the future land use is required to go to the state. It's reviewed by about 10 to 12 different state agencies. A part of that state review is the Florida Department of Transportation. They require staff, and basically that staff analysis that you have in front of you, prepared by a traffic engineer, as a worst-case scenario. They basically say you have to take and put a building on that piece of property from footprint to footprint and produce your traffic analysis so DOT can review that to see how it's going to affect any surrounding properties or any surrounding roadways, such as US 90, which is regulated by FDOT. So that's why that traffic analysis is produced to that extent. That's not saying that that's what they're held to and they're required, but we look at it as a worst-case scenario. It's considered basically a strip center or commercial venture in that sense. As a strip center or shopping establishment is considered the worst-case scenario.
Right. So, okay. So they've averaged this, the difference from R1 to the high commercial, to an additional 12,534 trips per day. Is that correct? Okay. So then I turn to page 15 of the same report, and it shows, as all this data shows, that the MSV, or maximum service volume, is exceeded for 3 of the 12 segments in a 5-year time frame. These segments are US 90 from Escambia County line to East Spencerfield Road and Woodbine Road to Chinook Highway, caused by the commercial change that is proposed here today. Okay. Also in this report, it shows that the widening of Woodbine Road to 4 lanes is included in the Florida-Alabama TPO's adopted cost-feasible plan, but funding is only identified for preliminary engineering at this time in the 2031 to 2040 timeframe. So I'm reading this as, if this is approved, we're going to have 12,000 more trips per day, worst case scenario. I mean, you could divide that in half and it's still pretty high when it's changed to commercial versus leaving it R1. With that in mind, I urge you to deny this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. My name is Debbie Bankus. I live at 4112 Sheridan Drive in Pace, which is not on Woodbine, but I've been here for many, many years, and I'm just going to say this right off the bat. I'm asking each of you to vote against the PUD. Is it owning on this? I've been thinking about this for quite a while. And every one of us that have stepped up to this podium we've done significant research on all kinds of issues surrounding this. I was getting ready to pick up the FDOT manual again, but I couldn't handle that. I thought about this. This looks like something that belongs in West Palm. You know what I mean? This really does not fit in the Pace area. It's nice, but you guys have been in those places, haven't you? The houses, those little small patio homes are all crammed together, and you've got that strip mall thing. We don't want that in Pace. And these people here that live at Woodbine, they don't want that on Woodbine. I almost purchased on Woodbine. Right now, I'm glad I didn't, because I really feel for these people. The other thing, too, is I don't know, Sean, those traffic counts, and I looked at the supporting documents on this item, 200 or 300 pages. I didn't have a chance to study everything, but Sean, do those traffic counts, does that include the population of Pace, Milton, using Woodbine for their services? Does that include the whole community, or is that just the Woodbine area?
No, ma'am, they're required to look at the full extent of that trip distribution of those trips. So they're looking at they're looking at Woodbine, they're looking at Chumuckla, they're looking at US 90. It goes all the way down Highway 90 past Avalon Boulevard. They're required to distribute those trips all the way through.
Okay, because I do business in the community, and I'll tell you right now, I love to go to Manning's and buy bird seed, feed the birds, and I don't like going there anymore. Did you ever try, Sam, you were there, try pulling out and heading south? Are you crazy? I mean, I've taken out life insurance. I'm afraid I'm going to get killed. Woodbine is a mess. It's a mess, you guys. These poor homeowners, they can't get in and out of their homes. And, just keep it as R1. Let the builders do it. But please, don't go with this PUD. These people, we don't need that commercial in there. The other question I have, I don't know if anybody here can answer it. I'm still good on time.
If you'll wrap it up, it was 3 minutes. So.
Okay. Oh, it's 3 minutes. I'm sorry. Just one quick question.
Right.
I know in some states, PUDs can charge an additional tax on their retail sales. Does that commercial going to be charging additional retail?
I don't know.
Well, the reason I'm asking is...
No.
No? Okay.
Right, we're going to we got a line.
Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to ask that question because that's another reason why I'm asking for you to vote no. Just quick, I don't know if you guys pay attention to the newspaper,
yes,
but the
ma'am.
schools.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record. Thank you for being here.
I have to go slow.
And that's fine. You take your time. I'd rather that than rush it and fall down. I just want to say, too, if there's anybody else that's going to speak tonight, I want to make sure we hear from each individual before we would allow anyone to come back to the podium. And again, we want to be expeditious. I know a lot of y'all were here during that zoning meeting, and I heard a lot of complaints about it getting so late. So we're going to try to do it while you still got our full undivided attention, and we want everybody to be plenty awake. So thank you.
My name is Donna Pittman, 4546 Pine Tree Drive in Pace. I've heard a lot of subjects here being discussed, and I agree with most of them. First of all, I do not oppose the Ball property being sold. It's theirs. They can do with it whatever they want to, just like I can mine. I am concerned, and I have it on good authority, that the first thing that D.R. Horton does when he goes in is to cut down all the trees. When somebody down in Pensacola said they were going to cut down those gorgeous trees on 12th Avenue, I was really aggravated. I'm very aggravated if they go in there and cut down those trees. There ought to be a law against it if there isn't. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'm not in favor of the PUD. I go with the other bit. Don't rezone. Have to stop and think a minute. I don't know how to say this without sounding nasty, but I don't think D.R. Horton is the person to do the building, not from what I've heard and read. He was just fined $24,000 in Pensacola for fouling up the wetlands. What's he going to do out at the Ball property? That 2020 ABC News had a program about a month ago where they showed some of the problems, mostly up north. Lady said, "There's nails coming out of my walls." And they showed the pictures. One lady said, under the concrete foundation here, there's a snake, and they showed the snake coming out. That's not what you want in Woodbine, the lakes of Woodbine, or whatever they're calling it. I don't think he's the builder. I'm concerned about that. There are a lot of nice places in Pace and in Milton. So I think that's all wrong, but I can't do anything about that either. The trees, the traffic, I can tell you there, in 2017, there were 18,000 cars a day, down 5 points to 90. There were 14,590 to 5 points. That was in 2017. The 2018 figures will not be out until May. We won't know until then, and that's from the State Road Department. I had one more. I think the traffic, with that traffic light there, is going to back up, and the people from Woodbine Springs are never going to be able to get out. They're not going to be able to get out because of a traffic light. It's going to be the biggest traffic jam there that you've ever seen on Woodbine Road. Thank God I don't live up at that end. I live at the other end. I would only make one comment, and I'm not going to get into it, but several people have brought up campaign funds and all. I'm not going to talk about that. That's already been gone to Tallahassee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Brandy Miles. I live at 3294 Melvin Drive. I am actually just south of the proposed development. You've heard a lot from the people to the north of development. I don't think you've heard from anyone to the south. There's been much talk about the surrounding R1 areas. On my end of the property, there is ag development. My home, I just moved from Pensacola out of a very high density area, moved to Pace for the small town feel, the charm, the less dense population. I rezoned an ag property, 9 acres, to R1 and built a home for myself. My surrounding neighbors have cattle, horses. My next door neighbor has pigs. And where we are living is just to the east of the proposed high-density 40-foot houses. So I would ask you gentlemen to consider that as well. I'm very concerned about how these 110 40-foot lots are going to affect our little, small, almost rural community in the middle of all of this. I too have a very difficult time. My son goes to Lead Academy. I turn left out of my street every morning, and I have to wait for somebody to wave me through and pray that nobody is coming in the turning lane so I don't get hit. And so I'm very, very concerned that if we develop this, change it from an R1 zoning to a PUD development, that it will obviously adversely affect traffic by higher numbers. So please, please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I'm going to take it there's nobody else that has not already spoken. All right, with that, I'll allow 1 minute. You can come back up, but we can't go all night. I'll allow you two ladies 1 minute. Come on up. Let's hear from it.
We took two. So Allison Seoane,
Thank you.
4245 Cambridge Street. I too, originally I'm from the DC area. I moved here. I moved to Pace for the schools and for the lack of traffic. That was the only thing that attracted me to Pace. Unlike most people, and I don't want to offend anybody, I came from the city, so that doesn't bother me. But the traffic and the school, I wanted to go to a good school district. I have neither now. So I'm looking to move out, because if I'm going to have this mess here, I'd rather be in Gulf Breeze. Okay? Also, I'm rethinking, I should have gone to Scambia, because now Nature Trails, they're building a new school, they're getting things done over there. The community, around, they're getting things down. The other thing, what you're talking about, FDOT, I hold no hopes for them to help us. I mean, there are giants around here that are trying to get things done, and they cannot get them done in time. We won't be able to.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. I think you're the last speaker here. Yes, ma'am.
Elaine Smith, Paddock Place. I just want to disclose some information that I obtained from the public records. Anybody can verify what I'm about to say. It's all available at the public records. The Olson Group as a group donated to Mr. Parker's campaign in 2016, $3,500. For the first 3 months of the 2020 pre-filing that he's done for the 2020 election, $8,000 has been invested. Let's see, Mr. Cole in 2018 accepted $4,500. Also in the same 2018 election, Mr. Peach received $3,000 this is from the Olson Group. That's the developer of this, what's being voted on tonight. That's $19,000 that the Olson Group has invested in this sitting Board of County Commissioners. All publicly available information. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll, if you will allow me, I'll make one last comment. Wallace may be right. I may sometimes give you more than you ask for, but, I had the privilege to serve our community, and I say our community because we all cross that river to Pensacola every day, and so even though I put on that green uniform just like these gentlemen do, and thank God for their service, and that vest, as much as it bothered me every day when I went to work and shifting around, I served this community under two different sheriffs, and that was a blessing. That was a part of my life, and so I just share with you, anyone that wants to make sort of innuendos or suggestions about campaign financing, I just share with you, that would be to allude that folks that contributed to our current sheriff now, that somehow they get favoritism or better patrol. I can tell you, after working under two sheriffs, that's not the case, and I can tell you that after sitting on this board and having the privilege to serve with these gentlemen, that is in no way, shape, or fashion the case, and that is why our attorney alluded to the fact of the stringent public records. So I just want to clear the air there. We could say that as much as you want, but we do appreciate you saying that. And for the record, anyone, as the attorney stated, it is your right to contribute to a campaign. So I said it once, but anybody can mail a check and we'll put it in the account. So thank you. With that, I will allow the gentleman, I apologize, I forgot your name, to come back up and give us some remarks if you had anything you wanted to address, any of the concerns here, and then we'll open it for discussion and try to dispose of the item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Again, Donaldson hearing for the record, and I would like to say, I think there was about 14 speakers, some of them were twice, and I think about half of them were in opposition to the project.
The other half, we're really talking about infrastructure and schools, their policy issues that really go beyond the land use framework that's in front of you this evening. But we specifically asked, there's a whole room of people that have come here to support, and out of courtesy for you and respect, we've asked them not to talk. So would you mind, would it be okay if I just at least had them raise your hand? Would you, if you're here to support this project, would you please raise your hand? So just, we asked them not to talk. So this is a good project, and we have a great developer, and I have the highest respect for Mr. Olson. I've worked for him many years. I've seen his projects. I've seen his awards. He's a figure of this community, and we're lucky to have a developer that's here. It's Mr. Olson's name that's going to be on that community, not D.R. Horton's. Ultimately, it is Mr. Olson, and I think he'll do an absolute excellent job. We heard a lot about issues that are really policy-related, and certainly we know that this board has a very thoughtful plan to address those policy issues dealing with the 1 cent tax. Highly recommend that you continue moving forward with that, but those are policies that you all adopt. So we're not apart from the residents on understanding the need for infrastructure, but we do have to work with the regulations that exist today, and the plan unit development process was put into your code because it did provide for these greater flexibilities to create open space and greater sustainability. So we would ask you to support this petition. This is a good project. It's good for Pace. It's good for the county, and I thank you very much for all of your time this evening, and I think Becky has the same to say. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll now open it to board discussion. Commissioner Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been sitting here taking notes tonight, and I probably should wait to our budget workshops to make some of these comments. A lady a few minutes ago said that Escambia County is really getting things done. You know why they're really getting things done? Because they've had a 1 cent sales tax in place since 1994. And we cross the river and spend that 1 penny over there, but we come back home and go, no, we're not going to do it. Let me say this. I'm a native Santa Rosian. I live just north of 5 Point on 5 acres. I've lived there for 44 years. I was born in Jay, Florida, so I'm a native. I have sit there and watched Pace grow. I hear people talk about, we moved there. Well, I could have taken the position, I didn't want any of y'all here. I was enjoying my little country life. But y'all came, and I didn't resist. Because I know now as a county commissioner, if you don't have growth, the people who live there will have to pay all the taxes. And I didn't want to pay more property taxes. So I wanted to see growth come, reasonable quality growth, to come to the area, so I wouldn't have to pay more property taxes. But I'm a native Santa Rosian, and I've heard comments about this project doesn't fit Pace. Years ago, when Stonebrook was built, some of my friends at Gulf Power Company said, Salter, nobody's going to pay that price for Stonebrook. It's packed today. Hammersmith, it doesn't fit Pace. How many people live in Hammersmith now? I can go on and on and on. But as a resident, I could easily take the position, I didn't want any of you here. But as a county commissioner, I want quality growth. So I support the project tonight, and I'll be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Commissioner Salter. Very well put, because I appreciate you not having that attitude, because I'm one of them darn Yankees that came down here in the Navy and married a local girl and stuck around. So, but I've heard tonight from New York, I've heard from Illinois, I've heard from California, and, you know, and now I got my keys, and the hell with the rest of you, just stay out of here. And that ain't the way it's supposed to be, folks. So again, I urge you to listen to this board. We are working on the traffic problem on Woodbine. We all drive it too. My heart was broken when them two kids got killed by that idiot. And we got a sheriff that's dealing with people like that today. But we got to all stick together. And like Wendell Hall said earlier, it's just numbers. So I asked you to look at the numbers on impact fees versus sales tax. Impact fees are called transportation impact fees. If that's what we put on you, then it's just used for transportation in that area. A sales tax we can use for the drainage, patrol cars, roads, infrastructure, parks. We have that choice, and we have a citizen committee that makes those choices for us. We don't do it. We got citizens to protect that investment and get it out there so we do the right thing. Look at what's being done now with the half-cent sales tax and allow this Board of Commissioners and future boards to move forward with a full 1-cent sales tax this fall. We can continue doing things. We can borrow money against that and fix Woodbine Road. We can borrow money against that and fix the drainage problems. We know those problems are out there, believe me. Y'all let us know. How we go about fixing them, we either raise ad valorem taxes. I don't want that. I pay enough right now. Let's let the people that visit our county, the people who pass through our county, and everybody in their county that spends a dollar, give a penny to help fixing the county. And I'm going to support this project because I think it's well thought out, it's a good project, and it's going to benefit our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comment, Commissioner Peach?
Yeah, I'll make some comments, Mr. Chairman. I've read through the numbers, and even if rough numbers taking out, if we kept R1, took out the wetlands buffer, assumed they'd take out the right-of-way, maximize the R1, it would be close, and that's just sitting here doing rough numbers. So, you know, the 726 is about what's going to happen either way, give or take a few in my rough mind. If we had impact fees, I asked, they were $2,090 for this area back when we had them. At 726 homes, that's $1.5 million spread out over 7 to 8 years because it's only paid when they pull the permit. You can't get a turn lane for $1.5 million. So the impact fees, you know, that was the math from there. There's a lot of arguments. We're having workshops on that. This is a planned a PUD. They're going to maintain the roads. They're going to maintain the drainage. We're still going to garner the property taxes. That will be no bill on the county. So these folks, in essence, will be helping take care of the rest of the county because their PUD and their HOA is taking care of the roads and drainage. Woodbine is a mess. I will not argue with a single person here. It is a mess, and we need to fix it. And we're trying to fix it. And we're trying to get the help from the state. You know, $30 million roughly, we don't have that when you look at what we take in property taxes. You know, and for the folks that keep talking about the schools, seriously, go to the school board. We have zero control over the school board. Look at their numbers of what they've taken in, and they're probably going to get mad at me. But I would love to see more schools. My wife's a teacher. I would love to see more schools. I don't have kids. I still pay 54% of my property taxes goes to school board. We're going to try. I'm educating myself on all these numbers, and I want to help educate other folks, and I'm willing to sit and have conversations all day long. So, you know, please, let's sit, let's talk. We can agree to disagree civilly, but as I look at this project and weigh the benefits of either one, I have to concur with the PUD. You know, we've heard from a couple of residents of Woodbine Springs. The dollars, the numbers, you know, we don't like either one because of what it does to Woodbine, but essentially we're picking the least of two evils, in my opinion. So that's how I feel, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So I don't get the whipping post later, I'll limit myself because sometimes I'll get off. It's clear. I'll say this, just like Commissioner Salter, I was born and raised here. My first house was on Highway 90, right beside where we go eat at Five Guys and Jersey Mike's. Now, I've seen the county grow, but also when I was a boy, I used to hear my dad fuss and moan about county government, and he said, they need to bring more high-paying jobs here so people's kids can stay. You know what? I'm a product of that. It's such a blessing that now, not only do I get to see my dad almost every day, sometimes even, you know, you could say too much, but he gets to see his grandkids anytime he wants. So I tell people, you know, when you say, well, gross evil, well, guess what? I dove straight in and said, I want my kids to have the opportunity to see their grandparents every day. I'll unequivocally stand behind that. And I would venture to say nobody in here would feel any different. So as a Christian man that gets down on my knees in that office before every time I come out here and I ask God for wisdom, I can tell you that our population's growing. And so the best thing we can do is say, how do we harness it? I don't make these decisions willy-nilly. I go and talk with a lot of people about this. You know, I jokingly tell staff they've watched as a young man at 35 years old me get gray hair, I think, because I worry so much about these things. Because this doesn't just impact us here tonight. It impacts my little boys that are down there at the T-ball field tonight. It impacts one day their kids. It impacts future generations, and I say that on a regular basis when we have meetings here. And so I take it very seriously. And I apologize for taking so long, probably to allude to the innuendos that we somehow give in that votes can be swayed over a few $1,000s. We're talking about the legacy of our children here. With that, I weigh it. There's clear options here. It's residential that can be developed under certain time frames, and regulations, or there's a planned unit development. You heard the one gentleman earlier tonight. And I'm glad that came before you earlier tonight so that people here that think, well, this board's just rampant and out of control. We denied a rezoning request. There's probably not a meeting that goes by that we don't deny some. Okay, we try to do the best we can, but based on that, and I can tell you I have probably raked over the coals more than any person, at least face to face, this plan with people directly involved in it. I have expressed extreme concerns. Some of the things that were brought up that sort of, got me a little alleviated versus the R1 is statistical data. These smaller homes, and I've researched other communities that are similar to what they're trying to do, that are geared towards active seniors or senior citizens, however you want to say it. Those folks generally don't have kids in the school system. So as far as, helping the school system, it is, a little bit easier. I feel like I'm doing my part. I'm paying my property taxes, and I'm paying for private tuition to send my kids to get a Christian education. One lady earlier mentioned she's sending her kids to Lead Academy. I mean, I think that is a tremendous asset that this community has. My kids don't even go there, but they're growing. They're helping to alleviate that. A lot of people are doing their part. But to penalize a group that, as folks stated, this could have been developed years before. It probably would have been developed 10 years ago if we wouldn't have went into a recession. But I'll summarize this. I still remember the recession, even though I was donning that green uniform and my paycheck didn't depend on anything to do with real estate. Although in a 10-year period I only saw 3% raise, it'd have been nice to get a little more. I'll tell you this, it was tough times. We were driving around neighborhoods and there were foreclosure signs everywhere. There were people out of work. There were people moving off or taking jobs out of the area. And, so yeah, we're growing now. But we can't penalize a property for trying to go above and beyond anything I've ever seen in the 2.5 years that I've been on this board. I've never seen thoughtfulness put in like this. And I promise you, I have criticized and for lack of a better terms, raked over the coals this developer and questioned every in and out. And I can look any of you in the eye and say that. But at the end of the day, this is planned far better than anything I've seen in 2.5 years that I've been on the board. So with that, I appreciate it. I take that time to explain to you. I try to do that on many things, especially when they're heated. I appreciate, just as Ms. Cato said, you getting involved and getting engaged. We understand, Mr. Peach says all the time, civil disagreement's a good thing. We want to hear from folks. We understand everybody's not always going to agree, so please don't take this as, hey, this is the last time we're ever going to come out to the board. I highly encourage you, please try to come out to one of the budget and infrastructure workshops. Invite your friends and family because it is important. For my kids' sake, I want to improve this community, and I'd say everybody else's kids gets the benefit of that too. So with that, Lord, that's supposed to be short. These guys get on me all the time.
3 minutes.
So with that, since this is District 1, I will make the motion to approve this project, and I'll make that motion without objection. Hearing none, the item's approved. Thank you very much for coming this evening, and I believe that concludes tonight's agenda other than recommending the ordinances, and I'll do so without objection. Hearing none, those are approved, and the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
I didn't.